The Graduate begins with Ben, our main character, staring blankly into space, uncaring and oblivious to the world around him. Next, we see him leaving the airport, and instead of walking where he's going, he just stands there on the moving sidewalk as he drifts past the world and the world past him. He goes with the current and follows that where it will take him. When I first saw The Graduate, I was hoping for something. I had just graduated high school, and I was hoping that it would give some kind of a direction on how to discern what to do next. Should I take a year off? Should I go straight to college? What should I do? I was hoping for that from The Graduate, and I was pretty disappointed. It did not deliver what I thought it would. And it wasn't until rewatching it for this video that I truly started to understand what it was saying. After Ben leaves the airport, we see him at his parents' house. They've thrown a party for him, and Ben is just sitting there. The camera is still only focused on Ben's face. And behind him is a fishbowl with fish swimming around. Out of focus and off screen are his mother and father, and they're talking to him. They're trying to convince him to come down to their party and interact with their guests. When they finally do, and he comes down, the guests are peppering him with questions of, what he's going to do next. Will he go to postgraduate school? Will he get a job? What kind of job is he going to get? All of that. And it has an eerie resemblance to when there's a kid at an aquarium and they tap on the glass to try and get the fish to do something. And that's what it feels like. It feels like Ben is the fish and his parents and their friends are tapping on the glass, trying to get him to move, trying to get him to do something entertaining for them. And we learn also that Ben got a car for graduating college. He got a red convertible from his parents, which will come into play a little bit later. And Ben escapes the party and goes back up to his room where he finds Mrs. Robinson, a friend of the family who he hasn't seen in a number of years. And she needs a ride home. She pressures him into giving her a ride home. He tries to just give her the keys to his car, and she throws them in the fishbowl. And this was one of the more confusing points for me, because the fishbowl is going to be a reoccurring symbol. The car is going to be a reoccurring symbol. And so I don't know what it means when those two symbols come together. I feel like it has something to do with the fact that Ben's arc is more or less a little bit of a weird shape. He starts out under the control of his parents' expectations, apathetic, going with the tide, and then he breaks free as he starts an affair with Mrs. Robinson. Spoiler. He and Mrs. Robinson start an affair, and that kind of breaks him out of that. It breaks him out of his worrying so much about his parents' expectations and following those and following the tide, and he diverts to a different course. He still is trapped, but he's trapped by something else. And so my only thought is that as Mrs. Robinson throws the keys to the car into the fishbowl, the keys and the car kind of symbolize Ben being controlled by the expectation of his parents and his apathy. And then Mrs. Robinson is breaking that. The fishbowl also is a symbol, I believe, of Ben being trapped kind of in his parents' expectations. And so she's throwing those symbols together and kind of throwing them out of Ben's life to a degree. So after that, Mrs. Robinson propositions him. He feebly resists, and then her husband gets home, and that's that. But we do have one more scene that I think locks in the whole fishbowl imagery, which is that his parents, for his birthday, give Ben a scuba suit. Something that he doesn't seem to want, and certainly doesn't seem to need. And for his birthday party, they have all their friends over again, and they force Ben, who's very unwilling, they force Ben to come out in the scuba suit and swim around the pool. Again, seemingly just for their amusement. And the way it's shot and the imagery of it is very clear. Ben is the fish, and the pool is the fishbowl. And it's after this that Ben calls up Mrs. Robinson and accepts her proposition, and they begin the affair. The imagery then changes pretty drastically to Ben, instead of swimming in the pool, or instead of swimming in the pool with others around, with others watching him, then Ben is floating on top of the pool, on a floaty, or diving into the pool. He's more isolated, and he's alone. He's alone in how he uses the pool, but he is still in the pool, and we stop seeing the fishbowl for a while. After this, the next kind of significant thing is Ben ends up having a conversation with Mrs. Robinson, and the conversation, he wants to talk about something other than sex. And so he starts talking with her, and we learn a little bit about Mrs. Robinson's background. We learn that she was an art student who was forced to drop out of college when she became pregnant with her daughter Elaine. And this is really the first bit of humanity that we see from Mrs. Robinson, is this underlying loss and sorrow at the life that never was. And we see that Mrs. Robinson clearly wishes that life had turned out differently, but it didn't, and she's now just living this life, trying to make the best of it. And this is really, it would seem to be, the path that Ben has followed in a much more compressed window of time, the same trajectory that Mrs. Robinson's life followed. Mrs. Robinson was passionate, she cared about stuff. Then she went and got beat down by life and by social conventions and all of it. She was beat down, forced to settle into a boring life that she didn't want and that she didn't care about. And now she's turned to this excitement, in this case, the affair with Ben, in order to feel something. And Ben has followed the same path. We don't know what Ben was like before college, but presumably he was like most kids and cared about things and happy and enjoyed life and wasn't afraid to enjoy life. And over time, he got beat down. He found it was safer to not care. And now his time under his parents' expectations was kind of, for him, what the time of Mrs. Robinson being kind of a mother before Elaine went off to college was to her. And now the affair is doing the same thing for him, of giving him some break from that, some break from boring normalcy. He's turning to it in the way that a lot of people might turn to an amusement park ride. It's just a break from the mundane in order to feel something. Then at the end of this conversation, Mrs. Robinson forbids Ben from ever taking out Elaine. And this is interesting. This is the other part that I found a bit confusing, trying to analyze this, is why would she forbid, other than, kind of the obvious, then why does she not want Ben specifically taking out Elaine? And I think it's because she doesn't want Elaine to be with the kind of man that Ben has become, that kind of apathetic, hedonistic man. So after this, of course, what happens? But Ben ends up taking out Elaine after being pressured by his parents to do so. Ben takes out Elaine. They go out and he takes her at first. He drives very recklessly in the car, very much similar to a roller coaster ride. There's no real reason for him to do so. I recall correctly, Elaine even asks why, and he's just says because he feels like it. And then Ben goes ahead and he takes Elaine to a strip club, something she's clearly uncomfortable with and finds very distressing, that environment. And eventually then it's too much for her and she runs out and Ben follows her. And this is really a turning point for Ben. We see just a click in his mind. Dustin Hoffman, the actor who plays Ben, does a really great job in this moment of conveying what's happening and of showing that switch flicking in Ben's mind as he comforts Elaine in a slightly selfish way, but he comforts her. And this is really the first bit of genuine emotion we see from Ben. And then they go to a drive-thru, they get some food, and they talk. And the way that it's performed, the way that Ben's acting is performed, is markedly different from anything we've seen up to this point. He's genuine, he's feeling positive emotions and expressing positive emotions. Up till now, we've only seen Ben really express negative emotions of anger or anxiety or apathy, which I guess is more a lack of emotion. But now we're seeing him express some positive emotions. So, long story short, then the affair comes out, and there's one moment I do want to highlight in this little set of scenes, which is, again, an acting point. The acting in this movie is superb. It really carries a lot of the subtlety and the nuance, and I think it's a lot of why this movie feels like it has a lot of depth. And it does have a good amount of depth, but you feel like there's the depth even if you don't understand where that depth is coming from. And I think a lot of that's from the actors. In this moment, just after the affair has been revealed, Ben told Elaine, and we see this shot of Anne Bancroft, who is the actress who plays Mrs. Robinson. She's in the corner of a hallway, and the camera starts close, and it pulls back, and she looks so small. She looks so small in this hallway, and the look on her face is just, it's really chilling. It's really heartbreaking. It's just this look of a broken person, someone who knows that their life is about to fall apart, and that even though it's a life they didn't necessarily want, it's still the only life that they have, and it still has a lot of security and a lot of safety, and it's about to fall apart, and they know that they're ruined in some sense, or at least, ruined by most metrics. It's a really tragic moment, and it's really beautifully acted by Anne Bancroft. So after that, we get a little montage and a little cycle back to our favorite symbols. We get Ben staring into the fishbowl, staring down from his window at the pool below, contemplating those things. And as he does so, I feel like he's at a turning point. Is he going to go back to his old life, to the old way of doing things? Is he going to go back to just going with the tide, following the current of his parents' expectations and of the expectations of the world? Is he going to continue the life that he kind of started living with Mrs. Robinson, of guarded apathy, which forces him to go to increasingly extreme lengths to try and feel something? Or is he going to follow that third version of Ben that we saw just a glimpse of on that date with Elaine? And that's what he decides to do. He tells his parents he's going to marry Elaine. Elaine's gone back to college at this point. She's, I believe, 2 years younger than Ben, and she's going to Berkeley. So she's back at school, and Ben comes and tells his parents he's going to marry Elaine, and she doesn't know it yet. They obviously have misgivings about that, but he goes off to Berkeley anyway to find Elaine and to tell her how he feels. He does so, and there's a bunch of drama around that, but eventually then Elaine does concede to considering marrying him. But they're chatting, they're talking, and then Elaine disappears. And through a course of questioning, Ben finds out that she has been engaged to marry a doctoral student with less than a honorable reputation, let's say. And in doing so, then she's been taken out of school by her parents and sent off at a wedding, getting ready for her to be married. And this is a really interesting moment, because I at first thought, oh, well, it's probably her dad. Her dad did it, and her dad's certainly a part of it. But when we get to the wedding, there's going to be a little bit of a surprise. But before that, Ben races to the wedding venue. He's driving. His car eventually breaks down, and when it does, he leaves it, leaving behind just that last vestige of his parents' expectations, because they expected that he would want a car. They didn't get him necessarily something he wanted, they got him something they thought he would want. And he leaves that behind, runs to the church, breaks up the wedding, essentially, and Elaine decides to go with him. Now, here's the surprising part. Mrs. Robinson is there at her daughter's wedding, of course, and she seems to be fully supportive of the wedding, perhaps to the point that it was her idea. And this is what really surprised me, is why would she essentially condemn her daughter to the same fate that she was condemned to? Literally forcing her out of school in the same way that Elaine becoming pregnant with Elaine forced her out of school. And it's kind of a dark twist, really. It's there. It's a little bit subtle, but it's there. And it's this dark twist of repeating these cycles and of forcing other people into these cycles of despair. That's what it is. Miss Robinson has despaired, and now she's forcing Elaine into despair. They break up the wedding. Elaine and Ben run away. They hop on a bus, and they ride out of there. And this is maybe one of the more famous parts of the movie. But this final scene, as they're riding away on the bus, this is another spot where the acting really shines. As they ride away, the Sound of Silence starts playing again, just like in the beginning. We have a shot, Elaine on the left, Ben on the right. And they're sitting there, and we watch them as they're driving away from the wedding. And we see at first they're happy, they're excited, they're energized, they're like, man, we did this. Then, gradually, their faces start to fall, and they kind of try and comfort themselves, almost. They don't look at each other, really, but it doesn't seem to do much. Their faces continue to fall, and you can see the reality sinking in. You can see the reality of what they chose as they're realizing it themselves, that they chose an uncertain life. They chose a life without the support of their very wealthy parents. They chose a life of independence, yes, but also of not having a lot of people to help them. They chose a new life and all of the challenges that come with that. They chose a lot of uncertainty. It could go great, it could go horribly. They barely know each other. They could get married, they could not. They could get married and get divorced. They don't know. And that uncertainty just washes over them. When I first saw this movie, this was the moment that I found really confusing and disappointing, because it didn't seem like they had changed at all. It didn't seem like Ben had changed. It didn't seem like he had really come to any deeper understanding or resolution. It seemed like he was just there, the same as he was at the beginning of the movie. And it was frustrating, because I had come and I had wanted direction, and it didn't feel like it gave me that. Rewatching it for this, though, I saw how Ben had changed. Yes, he ends the movie with the same uncertainty with which he started, of what's next. Who knows? But he ends the movie without the same apathy. He starts the movie apathetic, and he ends having made a key decision. The only difference between Ben at the end of The Graduate and at the beginning is that he decided to care about someone. He decided to care about Elaine enough to risk the uncertainty. I'm Josh, that's The Graduate. I hope you enjoyed. If you know any graduates, send this video to them, and have a good one. We'll call it at that.